All set, Kelly.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy January 11th to you. I hope everybody had a good weekend. It's been quite a week since the last time we saw each other, hasn't it, Ben? Hopefully, this president's talk will be a little less controversial. So we're going to go through the slide that you see here in the middle. We've got Jim Cohen from Veril here to speak on the legislative session that's coming up and MSBA's role in that session. Let's start out with just an overview of some of the orders that affect our profession. First up here, this is an important one for all of you who have put off re-registering your vehicle or taken other steps, which usually have deadlines under the motor vehicle laws. Some of those deadlines are no longer being extended. So you may want to check your tags. In fact, I think I should go after we finish this and do that myself. As everybody probably knows, the vaccine is slowly starting to be rolled out. From the association's perspective, my hope is that it has widespread availability enough so that the summer bar conference can be in person, because it would be nice to see everybody. But we'll just have to wait and see. Reminders about e-filing and email filing. I had my first experience with email filing last week. It took several tries. Kept on messing it up. Had to keep on reading the orders. Remember to include the cover sheet. There's a special email filing cover sheet. And the thing that tripped me up was I forgot to include my bar number on the cover sheet, even though it was on the filing. So the clerk is not hesitating to send back filings as rejected. So make sure you are not filing at too late in the day for the clerk to respond to any errors that you might have. A reminder to check the judicial branch's website for courthouse hours and closings. And then we have, let's see, Angela, this last one here. Can you speak to that?
Yes, this was a reminder to the child welfare stakeholders with respect to PMO SJC7. They were looking for some feedback on the current protocols, and the email that they had originally provided was incorrect. So we have the updated email right there, and it's due tomorrow by 4 p.m.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of logistical reminders. This slide that you see here does get posted on our website, as do all prior slides. And although you cannot click on the links right now, you can try, but it's not going to work. If you go to the website, all of these blue underlined links are in fact effective, and you can use those to jump to whatever the issue you might have. As we go through Bar Talk, if you have questions, feel free to chime in the chat, and we'll make sure that they get answered. And now let me turn it over to Jim. Jim, what's the state of the legislature?
Great. Thank you, Mr. President, and great to see everyone here in 2021. Going to spend a couple minutes talking about what we might expect for the upcoming legislative session. I spoke a bit back in December about the committee structure and the timing. I'm going to talk a little bit more today about some of the specific proposals that are coming forward. One of the things that occurred just before New Year's is that the legislature released a list of legislative requests or bill titles. And what that is a list of all of the bills that individual legislators submitted. Now, it is not a list of the actual bills. It is not exactly what will happen during the session, but it's a good reality check of what we might expect to see. So all we have are titles. Now, I haven't gone through and painstakingly counted each one. And if I had a printout of it, it would be a stack about that thick, but there are nearly 2,000 bill titles that have been submitted. And that's a combination of individual legislators as well as bills coming forward through state agencies and departments. Of that 2,000-ish, some number of them are duplicative, so it will reduce. Some number of bills, for a variety of reasons, won't go forward. Either the issue becomes mooted, the rules for getting language aren't followed, I would expect when all is said and done, we'll see somewhere in the 15 to 1600 bills get printed based on that list. In addition, during the course of the legislative session, there are bills that can come forward from the governor. After deadline requests can be submitted to the 10-member legislative council, and with 6 or more affirmative votes can also be let in. So there will be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 bills where all is said and done, probably on the lower end of that. So what does that mean for the association? So hopefully all of you receive the weekly legislative report from the association that we help prepare. And that list covers all of the sections of the Bar Association. And then there are some additional bills that have been labeled either board or association. Those reflect bills that the Maine State Bar Association as a whole focuses on. Those bills tend to be directly related to the mission of the Maine State Bar Association. Issues like indigent legal services, issues like the structure of the probate courts, whether there are tax breaks or incentives for lawyers to locate in rural parts of the state. Those sorts of issues that affect the entire practice of law and access to justice are where the association tends to focus. Now this year, I'm just going to look to the side for a moment. I've identified about 20 bills that have some broader significance that might be of the type of issue that the association would follow. We do not have legislative language at this point. We just have titles. But that includes, one issue has to do with remote notarization. Obviously, in the time of COVID, we've had to function in a much more remote way. The governor had an executive order back in the spring that allowed for remote notarizations. There's a bill title in that would allow for that, presumably on a go-forward basis. The Bar Association supported a remote notarization approach back in the spring, and would obviously look closely at any language that comes forward this time. There are bills related to the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services. We, again, don't know exactly what those will be, but they can range from the oversight of the commission itself, implementing the recommendations of the Sixth Amendment organization report, which recommended modifications to how indigent legal services are delivered. So there'll be bills like that. There are bills that have to do, for example, with a tax break for lawyers to locate in more rural areas. There'll be a bunch of bills dealing with the election process. There's once again a proposal to have probate judges be part of the judicial branch rather than the current system of elected probate judges. So some of these are issues we've seen before, and then there's some other number of bills that are likely to be new. So we'll be looking at those closely, and every week as bills get printed, you'll see our list, and certainly let us know if there are bills that you think that the association broadly should follow. Now, so that's A. B, on Friday, as required by state law, the governor released her budget. So we now have literally, I think, 600 pages of expenditure and revenue items, as well as new language. So lots of people, including myself, are still poring over the details to see all of the various proposals. But the budget is a very important document. That's the place where any administration lays out its agenda. And high level, this budget is one that does not purport to raise broad-based taxes, keeps them level, purports to put more money into the state's budget stabilization fund, also known as the rainy day fund, which would be at levels above what has been done before, and helps maintain the state's credit rating and cushions the budget in the event of volatility in the future. Likewise, more money was put into a Medicaid stabilization fund. And not surprisingly, money has been earmarked for issues like COVID-19 response, vaccination, broadband development. More money has been put towards general purpose aid for education, inching ever closer to the 55% state support that voters have endorsed in past years. So all of those things are moving forward. Now, how was this accomplished given a lot of announcements about shortfalls? And again, that's something I'm still studying and others are looking at, but high level, various curtailments were made by the state and the governor over the course of the last number of months that helped reduce projected shortfalls. There was a supplemental budget passed back in the spring that also reduced some obligations. And then federal relief has come forward, and every unemployment check with enhanced unemployment ultimately is taxable revenue, and other monies that have come forward have helped cushion the blow. So it still remains to be seen how the projections align over the next number of months with the budget, but high level, no new taxes on a broad-based basis, and additional contributions and spending in a number of important areas. So that is the budget. Where are we going from here? So I think I mentioned back in December that for the foreseeable future, as a result of COVID, the legislature would be functioning on a remote basis. So the relatively few times it's expected that the full legislature will meet, they are going to meet in the Augusta Civic Center with physically distanced tables and functioning in that environment. That is going to be the foreseeable future. Because that is not the greatest place to do business, I think the legislature plans to limit how often they need to meet. And so one major change is that bills, as they get printed, will be referred to committee by the direction of the clerk of the House and the secretary of the Senate, rather than having to go to the full legislature. Only where there are objections or recommended changes might the full legislature weigh in on those referrals. So that cuts down in the early part of the year how often the full legislature has to go into session. Committees will be meeting virtually. So it'll look probably a lot like this meeting here today. The chairs of the committee will run the meeting. I'm presuming that a clerk or some other administrative person will be responsible for maintaining decorum and determining who is able to speak. As far as I know, a member of the public who wants to testify will be able to raise their hand, be given time to speak, and would be not only able to be heard, but able to be seen as well. So that, for the foreseeable future, will be how committees meet. Testimony can still be submitted electronically. A system was developed within the last year or so that allows for somebody to upload a piece of testimony or directly type into a box some comments, and that automatically gets sent to the full committee and will get posted onto the website for each bill. So that system remains in place as another means of communication. I think all of us are a little anxious as to how will we get to know all of the new members of the legislature? How will we be able to communicate outside of committee meetings? Work that often got done in the hallways, there are no hallways in which to get work done. So all communications really are going to be virtual. I think people are still feeling their way as to how that is going to work. So in the next few weeks, what I expect is that committees will start getting to work with orientations. They typically will hear from state agencies and other key stakeholders who will provide brief overviews of the subject matter, how the state regulates an issue, who's involved, very, very high level. Individual members of the public might also have an opportunity to spend a couple minutes, introduce themselves if they are regularly appearing in front of a committee, just so that the committee knows who they are and who they represent. Finally, bills are going to get printed really starting at any time now. The revisor's office, which is responsible for the drafting and final printing of bills, is focused right now on bills that are simpler to draft. And that allows for bills to more quickly get printed and able to allow committees to get to work here in the early stages of January. The final thing I'll mention is obviously the last week has been a very difficult week for all of us on many levels, and how the events of last week are going to impact the way the legislature functions, the way people do business really remains to be seen. I think Maine has not been immune from partisanship over the last number of years, less so perhaps than has occurred nationally, but it could potentially create an opportunity for people to work more closely together. Certainly that's the hope. So while it has been a difficult week, there's every hope that that Maine, which is a smaller state and we know each other better, can move forward effectively and productively. So with that, Mr. President, I would be happy to answer questions folks have, provide any additional information. Appreciate the opportunity to talk today.
Jim, as always, you're a wonderful speaker, very knowledgeable. I really appreciate you coming and giving us that overview. It's very useful. If you do have any questions for Jim, please feel free to put them into the chat window and we'll address them. While we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, I just want to take a moment and let you all know that our legislative advocacy mission is a pretty important piece of what the association does. Obviously, we have Jim on retainer to work on behalf of the association, advocate for the positions that we take. As part of that process, we have a legislative review committee. And while the legislature is in session, they actually meet on a weekly basis. Jim, I think you just came off of a call with that group. They are going through these bills that are of interest to the association and making decisions or recommendations on how the association should react, whether it should weigh in favor or against, or at least provide information to the legislature on any of these issues. A huge part of that is input from our members, from our constituents, from all of you. And so I really want to encourage you, if you see a bill that you think should be of interest to the association, would you please let us know? We're not going to weigh in on everything. We try to focus what the association itself weighs in on things that really directly affect our mission statement. There are substantive laws in various areas of the law that our sections sometimes weigh in on. And so, for example, if you're a family law lawyer and there's a bill that is of importance to you in that area of the law, talk to your section in addition to talking to us, because sections can weigh in as long as they run it by us first as well, especially on substantive issues. If any of you have been involved in policy making before, you'll know that the vast majority of people don't speak up, and that the voices of the few that do can have an outsized effect. The same is true for our membership. We do hear from a few strongly opinionated folks, but I know that all of you have strong opinions, and I sincerely invite you to share those opinions with us. It helps guide us in what we do. So thank you, Jim. I'd really appreciate it. I don't see any questions, so yep, go ahead.
Before I sign off, and again, thanks for the opportunity, I did want to just add one other point that I failed to mention earlier. And you mentioned that we had a legislative committee meeting just before Bar Talk, and that is correct. One of the members of our committee is President-elect Frank Bishop, who also serves as the chair of an ad hoc committee that is following the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services. And I just wanted to update the group. We'll include this in our weekly update as well, that at the end of last week, the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services made a determination that the time frame by which participating attorneys need to get their billing in, which is listed as 90 days, that is going to be enforced beginning in April. So there'll be some lag before that happens, but attorneys should be aware that that 90-day rule will be hard and fast, I believe, in April. So I just wanted to pass that information along.
Thank you, Jim. And the reason, Frank, is the reason we have an ad hoc committee on the MCILS issue is that it is a thorny one. It's a tricky one. We're trying to figure out what position the association is going to take on the whole area. And so Frank is heading that up. So I appreciate that update. All right. Well, thank you, Jim. Angela, over to you for business side updates.
Thank you. So registration for the Winter Bar Conference, which will be held virtually through Zoom, is now available online. Once this slide is active, you can always click on that link right there that says registration, but you can visit our website. There's a banner at the top of the page. That's probably the easiest way to link to the Winter Bar Conference. We've already got a few registrations, so that's great news. So please make sure you join. One of the things we'd like to do at the Winter Bar Conference is hold an annual business meeting at which we want to present some bylaws changes that we feel that the Board of Governors has approved and feel are necessary. In order to do that meeting virtually, we need to change the bylaws in order to hold a virtual business meeting. And that is what that notice of an in-person membership meeting on January 13th is, which is this Wednesday. We are hoping to get a quorum, which for our membership meetings is 30 people, to attend this meeting at the Western Prom near the Thomas Brackett Reed Memorial at noon. The weather looks to be like it's going to be okay. It won't be a long meeting. There's one bylaws change that we're asking, and that is so that the bylaws changes to hold membership meetings in the future electronically if we so desire. The reminder blast that went out this morning has a link within it, Thomas Brackett Reed Memorial. I believe that will take you to a Google page if you need directions to that. Anybody that can make it, we would truly appreciate it so that we can then go forward with our plans for the Winter Bar Conference and future meetings.
Thank you, Angela. Yep, I'll be there. I'll be leading that meeting. Sometimes there's a taco truck up there next to Main Med. I'm looking at their Instagram feed. I don't know if they're going to be there or not. If they are, I'm going to have tacos, and I'd love to have your company for lunch, appropriately distanced and so forth. We have a tradition of saying something that we're thankful for. Angela hit me up for this, and I chose microspikes because my family went for a hike this weekend. And I grew up in West Virginia. Winter hiking, who goes winter hiking? That's craziness. But with microspikes, you feel like a mountain goat scurrying up the icy slopes. So I'm a big fan. That's what I'm thankful for. And I'm thankful for all of you. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Bar Talk. And with that, unless there are any other comments, questions, or suggestions from anybody, I think that does it for us. We'll see you next week.